Yeah, it's both for people who are like who love poetry, but or who like writing, but also people who are interested in exploring different aspects of sexuality. And just, a beautiful gift for like your female friends that's like kind of cheeky and fun.
I'm Rachel, and you're listening to the Owning Your Sexual Self podcast. Hey, we are back for another interview today with a special guest. I have on today Tash Doherty, who is a British Irish American writer and author. She is the creator of Miseducated. It's a blog and a podcast on a mission to help the world be shamelessly sexy. Love that. And the author of These Perfectly Careless Things. It's her spicy coming of age debut novel, which she self-published in September of 2023. And she graduated from the Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania, and lives in Mexico City. And today we are talking about her tips for how to be shamelessly sexy. And also, fun thing, she is about to publish the world's very first sex journal for women this fall. So you can expect this episode to be so fun. We're talking shamelessly sex, one of my favorite topics. How do we get rid of the shame? All the fun things. And then I'm so excited to hear about her journal that is coming out here in just a few months. So without further ado, let's welcome her to the show. Hey, hi, Tosh. Welcome to the Owning Your Sexual Self podcast.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Rachel, for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much again for reaching out. When I saw the subject line of like world's first sex journal, I was like, yes, let's do this. That sounds so fun. Something that, yeah, I often like create prompts and stuff for my clients and like journaling and reflections and things like that. But to have it all in one, like how amazing is this going to be for people?
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited, but also it seems like quite a big statement to say the world's first sex journal. But I've done some market research with my amazing friend in Berlin, and we did find that there is a gap in the market for a high quality, beautiful, something that you can be proud to have in your house. And as you could probably tell, I'm from England, so I'm super excited to tell you more about it, and all the poetry, literary things that I put together with it. So yes, it's very exciting.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm even more excited. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, and we'll start with talking about just this concept. Like you're helping women step into the shamelessly sexy vibe. And it's
Mhm.
something I think so many of my listeners are craving. But I'd love to start, like, can you just tell us a little bit about your journey and how you came to create Miseducated and then focusing on the shameless sexuality?
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in a very kind of shameful society. I went to these private all-girls schools in London where we had tons of rules. We couldn't even wear our hair down like I'm wearing my hair down now. So, I was always growing up with a lot of like rules that I ended up questioning. And that actually gave me plenty to rebel against, which I think is also a really fun part. But I just think today, growing up as a woman, we have so many more opportunities. We're more educated than we've ever been. We're making more money than we've ever made. And so now it's really about us taking control of our destiny. And the shamelessly sexy aspect came about because I was working with a mentor called Robin Fisher, and she's really amazing. And we decided to design this, my tagline around shamelessly sexy because there's so much shame that I experienced growing up. I still remember like going to the doctor and getting birth control for the first time when I was 16 and, being so embarrassed that like I had my first boyfriend, I had waited like 6 months to have sex with him for the first time anyway. And these are all just bodily experiences. And as I've grown into my adulthood, I think sexuality and intimacy are some of the most beautiful and amazing aspects of being alive. And then I'm just thinking, like, why are people so afraid of women enjoying themselves? So basically, I started Miseducated almost as an accident about 5 years ago now. So I had been working in tech, super depressed in my career after going to business school, and basically just decided that I wanted to write more about sexuality because it was a topic that I was very interested in. And people liked it, people were interested in what I had to say. I write about, oral sex or, where like I don't really use a razor. So how does that affect my experiences with men? What do the men say to me? Do they like, those kinds of experiences with me? So I started to use my blog, Miseducated, as my quote unquote sex journal. And again, not everyone is going to be crazy enough to share experiences like this on the internet. But then my readers started to come out like, are you like, is there something that I can use in my own, sorry, my internet, but is there something that I can use, in my day-to-day life? And they started telling me about the journals that they were using. And then I was like, okay, well, I should just make a journal then so
Yeah.
that people can tell. So yeah, I think I can also go into the core tenets of how to be shamelessly sexy, but maybe yeah, you
Yeah,
have
I
some
would love
reflections
that.
so far.
I'd love to hear like what when you say shamelessly sexy, like what does that mean to you?
Yeah, so it's inspired a lot by people like Brené Brown as well. But the first step is to identify some shame that you have and actually like work on your shame. And that's about helping people figure out what they actually want, as well. Because whether it's a fantasy or something you want to explore with your partner, as you identify and figure out what you want, there can be feelings of shame that come up from that. So I have a whole bunch of tips on my blog as to how people can work on that. And then, the second aspect is believing that you deserve what you want, which is so linked to our experience of being a woman in general, to think that like we can't have access to the things that we actually want or we don't deserve these things. And then the third aspect is asking for what you want. So
Yeah.
then I go into some tips as to how people can do that as well. So it's really fun. And I think, as you probably, know from your work as well, is that sexuality and intimacy really affects all other aspects of our lives. Like if we can be vulnerable, if we can feel empowered in this specific super vulnerable area of our lives, then it gives us power to, continue to go out there in the world and do our best, whether that's professionally or with our family and enjoying ourselves along the way. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. And just for listeners, what would you identify as some common ways that women hold back and disconnects from their sexiness?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, one aspect that I'm exploring a lot is the culture around social media that we, generate for ourselves. And a lot of it, I'm really exploring this right now in my own life, is that my male partners hold me to way lower standards physically than I hold myself. Like as I was just saying, I just got my hair cut today, but I'm sure that my, male partners are not sitting there being like, oh, your split ends are looking terrible. But here I am, like critiquing myself, internalizing these messages that I need to look perfect at all times. And that I think is something that's super dangerous that we do to each other as women, or we internalize those messages ourselves. So I really try to help people unpack that as much as I can in my own work. And ironically, it means often listening to, if we're dating men, what the men think of our bodies, because the chances are is they're not critiquing us, as intentionally and intensely as we critique ourselves. So
Yeah.
there's one aspect for you.
Yeah, so we're definitely holding ourselves back in that regard of like putting such pressure on ourselves to look a certain way, act a certain way. Yeah, like be a certain way essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And it can be details like, I'm even still a bit self-conscious about my belly, right? But I think the men that I sleep with don't even care, or they maybe even like that I have more, skin on my bones and stuff like that. So it can be a really interesting perspective to try to see our bodies and ourselves from the from the perspective of a partner who's attracted to us. And just in general, I think, that's why I really focus on unlearning the shame or working through shame in the first aspect of what you want, because I also pinpoint other, examples of when I was a child, like running around, and I was the one who was like going through puberty first. And so I was kind of like bullied by my siblings and my other kids in the community on the block and those kinds of things. So it's going to be different for everyone. But I think that's why I like the power of writing as a tool to explore these experiences, because, think back to your childhood or your teenage years and try to identify those key moments where you like experience shame, or maybe people were bullying you for a variety of reasons, and try to work through what exactly is happening there. So yeah, that's why I think writing is such a powerful tool to help people, and why I'm super excited about the work that I get to do every day.
Yeah, I love this. And this all started for you in the form of a blog. Like you're just kind of writing and riffing off and like people are like, "Hey, I like this." And it kind of transpired from there and grew.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, but part of it also is like the rebellious aspect of me,
Yeah.
where again, I think about, my great grandparents or my grandmother. And a lot of women, in our lineages maybe had dreams that they wanted to pursue education or careers, but they weren't able to for various, like, for their circumstances. So I really like to try to take advantage of the fact that today I can say almost whatever I want on the internet. Of course, that comes with a certain level of like trolls and everything as well. But I think it's important to make these experiences accessible to people because, we're all going to have hopefully a first time, sleeping with somebody, periods, menstruation. There are so many topics that are just so integrated into our daily lives. And I like to make them a little bit more accessible and then also just say what I think about them because a lot of people, might not be totally honest about what they're going through, especially with a bunch of strangers on the internet. But actually, that's easier talking to strangers on the internet than it is to talk about with my own siblings or my parents or my aunts and those kinds of things. So there's a weird, balance in that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of your top tips that you would say that you have found for being more shamelessly sexy just in your everyday life?
Yeah, well, that's why I find writing to be such a beautiful and empowering experience because I've written specifically about the techniques that I use to orgasm. So I've written about my partners who gave me the most orgasms. I have a blog post called How to Achieve Orgasm Equality, which I dedicate to the barista who gave me the most orgasms. And I really try to work on that. I think that's a huge thing. And also anal equality. I don't know. I hope your listeners are like comfortable with all these topics because not every podcast is. But that's the other idea that, if you're thinking about exploring anal sex, for example, it should be a both way situation in a heterosexual relationship because both people are able to receive, right? So I really try to deconstruct those other kinds of topics. And I talk about that from my own experience where I just think the imbalance between men and women, the orgasm gap, those are all topics that I want to work on. And I like to describe, the specific workings of my own body. Like readers of my blog will know that I like to take a finger up the bum, for example. That's something that like I find pleasurable.
Yeah.
So again, maybe not something that like a professional, boss of mine might want to read, but something important that I think I shared. And then I've had, my friends or my friends' mums read my blog and say, hey, I also tried this and I was also having more pleasure with my partners.
Mhm.
So I think it's a win-win situation for everybody, despite the overshare. It's a funny balance, as I was saying.
Yeah, I have to agree. Like I've been podcasting, I've had this podcast for 5 years and over the years, like have all similarly been very open and expressive in what's happening in my sex life and my marriage and all of that. And so yeah,
Yeah,
the amount of people that you wouldn't even think are watching or listening or reading, reaching out and being like, wow, like thank you so much for this. Like I just listened to this, like this gave me permission to explore this, or this gave me the idea of even exploring this or talking about this. And so
yeah.
yeah, I think it takes people that are willing to like step into that place of vulnerability and allowing them to be seen in this space that really evokes this change in the world of sexuality.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I try to do that, but it has been awkward because then obviously some of my partners will read the blog and then they'll critique it and say, well, actually, my dick was this big and blah, blah, blah. But all this, honestly, overall, I think that's why I encourage everyone to pursue writing as a creative outlet because these are your words, it's your voice, it's your story and your experience. For example, I wrote this one article about pegging my boyfriend, and that was an important piece for me to write because I reflected a lot on masculinity in that piece, saying how we oftentimes like shy away from allowing men to be vulnerable or like show sensitivities. So that was a very important thing for me to say in that piece. But then obviously my ex who read the piece was very annoyed about that. And we thought, he could be identified and stuff, which he obviously couldn't. But but I was there. I was also the one who was pegging him. I was in that experience. And that's why I believe that, owning our experiences is so important. And that also helps a lot for, survivors of abuse or different situations, when you felt like you maybe didn't have control. It's like, no, you were actually there. That is your experience. And it's very important to own your experience. And I think words help us to do that. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'd love to hear more about your novel, The Coming of Age and the Spicy Debut. What inspired you to tell this story?
Yeah, I started that book when I was like 14 years old. So it was a long time ago, but I just wanted to write a lot. And I ended up, yeah, finally publishing it like 2.5 years ago. But most of my novels are actually based on places. So London, especially, was where I spent those really formative teenage years. And, you can go out, and experience London or any city in the world. But when you're a teenager, you only get to have those experiences of doing it for the first time once.
Mhm.
So that's why I really enjoyed just exploring all the teenage shenanigans that we get used to get into, the drinking of like crappy alcohol that you buy from the corner shop and smoking and like going behind your parents' backs and things. But that book also I explored, menstruation, female pleasure, all those kinds of things to give my character a really well-rounded experience as a female, including a birth control experience, taking a pregnancy test in the Starbucks bathroom, and really bringing the experience of like an adolescent girl to life. Because yeah, it's those are really core memories and core experiences that young women can have.
Mhm.
So I wanted to share some of those and have help my character transform through them. So
Yeah,
yeah, it was awesome.
absolutely. I think I love that because, yeah, it's some of the things that you just shared. I'm like, yes, I've also had similar experiences to that. And I just
Yeah.
think of, right, like looking to kids now and just thinking like I know what I was doing when I was 14 and like looking at people in my life that are 14, like friends, kids and things like that.
Mhm.
I'm just like are is this happening for them? Is this not happening for them? Like I feel like we just live in such a different world, but then also, yeah, like my parents didn't know what I was doing, or who I was
Right.
doing it with back then. And so
Yeah.
yeah, I think though we are so young and naive, we are also so knowledgeable and smart in so many ways too back then.
Yeah, totally. And I think also, as I would really encourage your listeners to be that kind of like slightly crazy auntie or cousin or friend for any young people in their lives. Because, when I part of the reason why I wrote this book is because when I was that age, I didn't have anybody that I could talk to about those things. And again, I don't try to press anything on somebody who doesn't want to listen, but I will just say to any, family friend or cousin of mine who's under the age of 20, if we're at a barbecue or something, I'll be like, hey, let me know if you ever need plan B or if you ever need, if you're trying to decide on a birth control method or something like that, because $60 for plan B while you're 15 years old could be catastrophic or difficult to acquire. And here I am. I don't have that much money, but I definitely have enough money to just, Venmo them or whatever. So I think it's really important. And actually, that's a beautiful role that I've been able to take,
Hmm.
with some of the young people in my life. And it makes me realize that even at 30 now, I'm like, I might have actually learned a thing or two
Yeah.
in the last 10 years. And actually, yeah, we've grown up quite a bit since we were in high school. So we may as well help some other people with that. Yeah.
That reminds me, I went to a cookie exchange over the holidays last year, and I showed up in my Merry Clitmas sweater, and it had a picture of the clitoris on it. And my friend's sister, so my friend's niece, who's 10, I walk in and she's just staring up at my shirt, like, and I could just tell she wanted to be like, "What is that?" And I like walked away. I was like, and it was like this room full of people. I had just walked into this like cookie exchange, and I was the time I went and I took off my sweater and I had on like my just like the cute little playful gingerbread shirt on underneath, and I was like, yeah, I was like, I'm not ready for that yet. Like I don't like if the mom, and then I told the mom this happened, who I'm also friends with, and she's like, if anybody's gonna have the sex talk with my kid, I want it to be you because you
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting though, and I think the age difference is a really interesting thing too, because I have, again, my like the young females in my life who are like 17, 18. I'm like, okay, they're ready for this. But then I have another cousin who's like 12 and she's on TikTok, and I'm posting on TikTok like top 10 tips for female pleasure. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure my like really sweet, but like quite well-meaning and conservative cousins like don't really want me to like be, talking to their 12-year-old daughter like this. So I think, yeah, it just takes a little bit of judgment to make sure that they're at an appropriate age. But then also, it's like we do treat young women who are menstruating like their children, and it's like if your body can get pregnant, well, that's probably a good time to know these things anyway. So it's a balance.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And similarly, like girls are rather in my life that once they've turned 18, my cousin, my husband's stepsister, when they turn 18, I have gifted them a vibrator on their 18th birthday. I'm like, here's everything you need to know. Like if you and it's like so for so many people that I've done this for, or even like as bridesmaids gifts and something, like it's been their first sex toy ever that they've got. And I'm just like, oh,
Oh my God.
I'm about to change.
Bridesmaids?
Oh.
Oh, it's tragic. But yeah, I've had also other friends who have read my blog who've never orgasmed before. It's really incredible to like think about that orgasm gap. And even more of the reason why those of us who know that we can orgasm multiple times need to do that every single time we're with our partners to try to level the playing field out there in the world. But yeah, it is really amazing to like see that change happen in people's lives, close to you and stuff. And yeah, it's kind of a fun role to play. Like, it's nothing, it's a little bit rebellious, a little bit curious, and makes the people a little bit uncomfortable. And I don't know, I just kind of like something about that.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, so Tasha, I'd love to get more into your sex journal. And so you've already spoken a bit about what inspired you to create this, which I think is amazing. Like the fact that you found writing to be such an outlet and such a tool for you, again, for breaking down that shame and stepping more into the expression. But I'm
Mhm.
wondering, can you give us a sneak peek of what women can, and also, is it only for women, or could men use the sex journal as well?
Well, I've chosen feminist, female identifying poets for the book, but men can also use it. And I also just accidentally did an in-person workshop over the weekend, and there were plenty of men who were in that group as well. So, and I try to make it as gender neutral and like also like polyamorous or number of partners people are having as possible.
Mhm.
I even try to say, hey, if you haven't had any experiences, you can write about your fantasies instead, right? So real or imagined experiences that you've had. But yeah, so basically the journal came out of the interest from my readers who were, I was finding, putting together their own sex journals. And then I was like, wait a minute, like I can do this better. And I think what I really wanted to get at was that there's such wealth in this poetry, right? Like there's so many beautiful experiences, details. It's been creating the anthology aspect of the poetry. So there's 20 poems in the book. Has been like so inspiring for me. And a lot of them are like translations. I've had to go and get all the rights to them, all those kinds of things. And it's also modeled off of writing classes that I've done for a lot of, the last couple of years, where you're given a passage and then a couple of writing prompts, and that inspires you to move in through any kinds of material or experiences that you have. And I've specifically found that, you can get like boxes of like intimacy cards and those kinds of things, but I really struggle with that because I think that it's again that richness and that depth of the experience, sensory details, all those kinds of things that I think were missing from the experience of those card boxes. And so that's why I was like super excited about compiling them all in a journal.
Mhm.
And then I write the prompts, right? So I have helped people to explore based on the passages in those poems. So yeah, we have like ancient Greece, Sappho, the original like Sapphic poet. I have another ancient Chinese poet, Inuit poets as well, and then some modern contemporary voices that have never been published. So yeah, it's right in the works. It's gonna be on the press soon, and it's really exciting. Yeah, I could not be happier, to be honest.
Yeah, I see like you're just so lit up talking about it, and I'm very excited.
Mhm.
I'll definitely be grabbing a copy of this for myself.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I would love to give a freebie maybe to your listeners as well if we can make that happen. That would be
Oh,
awesome. Yeah.
girl, we love a freebie around here, of course.
Yay.
Yeah. And so somebody gets this in their hands, like what are you hoping for like, what do you vision? What do you hope that they get from this experience?
Yeah, so I wanted it to be something private, but also high quality and beautiful that you could be like excited to have in your house. And so I'm also designing the pages of it as well. So, for example, the pages for each chapter will have more of a card feel, and as you're like opening like a nice coffee table book, it'll be more like card. And then the pages where you can actually write your experiences will be more like normal journaling paper. And yeah, so I think I just wanted people to be able to explore so many different aspects of sexuality. So we have, chapters like longing or obsession, deviance, safety, ecstasy. So I've tried to choose poems to match those themes and then give people the wealth of prompts that they can explore. So you could pick almost any experience that you've had. And also some of them are more to do with self-reflection. Some of them are more like specifically, writing a guide to pleasuring you from your partner, those kinds of things. But yeah, there's beautiful, beautiful imagery. One of my other favorite prompts that I came up with is imagine your body as an altar and what kind of like talismans or omens or objects are on the altar, of your body. And that's inspired by a poem called by Ozzy Azolium, who's as Alozium, who is one of our contemporary voices as well that I'm going to be featuring. So
Mhm.
it's all happening.
Fascinating. Yeah, I'm excited for this. This sounds amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's do. I think we were both fast talkers, and I'm like, we just covered so much in such a short amount of time.
Yes, I hope that the speed has been interesting and engaging for everyone.
Yeah, like you could just tell, like we're both very excited about this thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Yeah, so the goal is to be hopefully I just actually spent a couple of weeks in away over the summer. So I got my sister, my parents, even, my parents who are not totally, I mean, they're as supportive as they can be of this kind of work.
yeah.
But they did give me feedback. So now the stage that I'm at is that I'm going to be implementing all of their feedback. And I'm also now partnering with a local photographer, videographer professionally in Mexico City, where I live, which is also a huge part of the experience of being here and being able to be creative and living in the city. It's like so awesome for me. So I found the publishers are also going to be a Mexican-based company, and they're helping me with all the designs and everything. And then once the samples are ready, I'm going to be hopefully making the Kickstarter video in the next couple of weeks and then launching that so that by, the end of October, everyone should be able to buy copies. So it's going to be in a pretty intense timeline, I would say.
Yeah, and just like so many moving parts to it all as well. It's not just this, hey, I created this thing, boom, print it and send it out. There's so much thought and love going into it.
Yeah, I think because I already published or self-published my first novel, so I've got a little bit of a taste of what it takes to, create something and birth a book out there into the world. But this one I think is gonna hopefully, gain enough momentum, that hopefully our Kickstarter project will be like successful enough. We'll reach the amount that we want to raise for it. And then, yeah, people can have access to it. And yeah, it's both for people who are like, who love poetry, but, or who like writing, but also people who are interested in exploring different aspects of sexuality. And just, a beautiful gift for like your female friends that's like kind of cheeky and fun.
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't know. I just started really working full time on it like only a month and a half ago. So
Wow.
yeah, but I think I spent like 15 years writing that novel. So
Mhm.
anything that I do that's faster than that, I'm pretty, it's a good amount of time. But making a journal is way easier than writing a novel, I can tell you that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. Are you up for just some fun closing rapid fire questions?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. What would you say is your favorite sensual ritual?
Well, that's a really great question. What comes to mind is just my daily masturbation habit, which is just like I have a magic wand, and I like the first green setting on my magic wand is my preferred method. But that isn't particularly like sensual. I would say that just kind of like gets the job, keeps the grease on the
Yeah.
wheel, and like keeps things going. One of my favorite things to do that I've started doing more of is microdosing in the mornings and then going for a walk in my neighborhood and then writing. So there's something about a little bit of microdosing that kind of, again, takes the edge off of my anxiety, which, I struggle with constantly. And then, yeah, just allowing myself like that open page of just whatever I want to explore. And I think the microdosing just kind of heightens my senses a little bit more.
Mhm.
And I live right next to a like a 1 mile little radius, like a hippodrome, like in Mexico City. And there's trees and beautiful architecture and like, it's just and sights and smells and sounds and people running and it's just a really nice experience. So I love, as I was saying with my novel and things, the places that I'm in inspire a lot of my work. And I try to bring those in, even if it's not like this means that. There's a lot of different sources of inspiration for me all over in Mexico. So I'm very grateful to Mexico and so happy to live here.
That's awesome. When I'm curious, microdosing mushrooms or something else?
Yep, just psilocybin mushrooms, but I really take like a tiny amount. Like it's not, I've kind of figured it out now to the point where like I don't experience visuals.
Mhm.
If I do want to do more, I can always do more, but I usually try to take an amount where I can also function during the day. And so that means like only something that's not going to be crazy and blind me or anything like that. But yeah, that's what I enjoy doing. And also there's beautiful, like another company that I love. It's owned by a woman here in Mexico. It's called Maria Cacao. And you just buy like a beautiful block of Tabasco cacao. And when you mix it, with water and a little bit of honey and cinnamon, it's just it's an ancient ritual that's like they're bringing into, our daily lives here in the city. So I really love that brand. And I sometimes just drink cacao while I'm writing as well.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay, next question is what is the spiciest book you've ever read?
Oh my gosh, that's a really great question. I actually can't remember what it was called, which I should probably try to dig back into my memory. But I found it in the library of my like private all-girls school and my in high school. And that was also like I was also watching a lot of pornography at that point already. But it explored like all kinds of just like I would say normal-ish sex scenes, like nothing too crazy. But I think the setting of how I discovered this book was what made it so crazy because I remember like opening it up, maybe she was like giving him a blowjob or something, and then closing the book and going to like the library checkout counter to like take it out, and then being like, how is this even possible, you know? And I don't think I even had words to like describe what was happening in the scenes or why it was like kind of exciting. And this was also before I like really started masturbating, but probably when I was like 13 or something. So yeah, that's specifically what I remember is taking the spicy book out from the library. And I think that actually had an impact on me as well with my novel and I ended up writing about those sex scenes too, because it's a very important part of coming of age, as we were talking about. So I think it's great to make those relatable. But
Mhm.
yeah, I'll have to try and figure out the name of that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And what is something that makes you instantly feel sexy?
Oh my goodness. That's a really great question. Yeah. Oh, well, there is one. There is one thing. It's kind of something that turns me on, which I think is it's such an interesting thing to notice, but I really like looking at my partner's hands. So, or just a random, you know, if I'm at a bar or whatever and I like meet a guy, like looking at his hands because I think the hands show the potential of like what they could do to you or like where they could put those hands and what they could be doing. So something that really like turns me on instantly when I'm in a bar is just looking and imagining what people's hands can do to me.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, I guess that does make me feel sexy or it just turns me on a lot.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's definitely something.
Hmm. And then, okay, last one. What is your shameless guilty pleasure?
Oh my God, definitely. My so basically my neighbor, actually one of my best friends, Fanny, she has a sex toy company. And I was really able to luckily gain one of her small onyx butt plugs that I just have in my house. So that is like for sure I actually won it at a there was a live dating show and they were giving it away as a freebie and you had to like shout out to the audience like what you were going to do with it. And nobody, we're in Mexico and it's a little bit more conservative. So everyone else had the, you know, the brain to not say anything. And then I raised my hand and I was like, I'm going to use this after a long day at work on my own in my house. And so that's how I won the butt plug.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful. It's got a really, really beautiful tone. It's like black and small, which I think is nice. You know, you don't need anything crazy with the butt plugs, not like those giant dildos that they have in some sex shops and stuff. So yeah, I would say I'm pretty shameless about that. And I think it's important to explore, you know, different aspects of our bodies, and it's something that I really enjoy. And it's also something that I think I like to describe it as like an easy assist from my male partners, right? Like maybe they can't like stimulate my clitoris exactly in the right way that I want to all the time, but they can use this plug or use other toys to help me as well. And so, yeah, I think it's important to incorporate both butt stuff and male partners into your pleasure.
Yes. And how can people find your work? Either your blog, your podcast, your book, the upcoming journal. Where do we get all the information?
Yeah, for sure. So the Kickstarter is coming soon, so please do stay up to date. But my Substack is misseducated.substack.com, and that's miseducated all one word, so MISSEDUCATED. And tashdoherty.com if you want my slightly less spicy articles of, you know, I'm writing about biking etiquette in Mexico City right now, how to bike in the city, so stuff like that, just
Yeah.
other fun stories that I might have. Yeah, that's a good place to start.
Thank you. Thank you so much again for coming on the show today. It was so good. I'm very excited to get your journal and thank you, yeah, for just letting us like have a little peek inside of your sex life.
Yes, thank you, Rachel. I'm so grateful to be able to talk openly and shamelessly about these very important topics. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you loved it, be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And if you really fucking loved it, make sure to tag me on social media at @TheRachelMain. I'll see you next week.